Thank you, sir. Mr. Speaker, I don't get up very often, but I would like today to take just a minute or two and talk to the body about the House budget and the health care portions of it. Mr. Speaker, you know, an Appropriations Committee this year has been a challenge. We have listened carefully to the citizens and the advocates. We've attended public hearings all over the state, including a 6-hour session here before we started. And we have heard eloquent testimony about the importance of the safety net and the valuable role that home care services play for our disabled citizens. Now, Mr. Speaker, we then had the challenge of balancing our budget within the limitations of our recession, and we also had to respect the will of the citizens of Virginia who voted for a new governor who ran on a platform of not raising taxes on the citizens of Virginia. Subsequent to that, votes in both bodies of this assembly have confirmed that we will continue to offer car tax relief and will not enact a general tax increase. Now, I patiently listened to members from the other side of the aisle, folks that I respect a lot, the delegate from Arlington, Mr. Hope, the delegate from Fairfax, Mr. Plum, and I've heard them stand and lament the cuts that we've been required to make to accomplish a balanced budget this session. Disappointingly, Mr. Speaker, none of those speeches was accompanied by a recommendation as to where we might get the funds from other parts of the budget to make things balance. Mr. Speaker, one thing I have learned down here is that the needs of our Commonwealth are endless, but the resources of our Commonwealth are not. They are finite, and they're a little less this year than they have been. What we've had to do this year is to make those very difficult decisions to allow us to produce a balanced budget, and one that's based on realistic revenues and not funny money. While here, we all deal with the advocates who are so passionate about their causes, but those who elected us to come here to balance the budget, to complete our work on time, and not to raise their taxes don't have so many lobbyists or folks walking the halls down here. We have to stand up for them. And Mr. Speaker, I am proud of our House Health and Human Resources budget. We tried to treat everyone fairly. We tried to listen to the advocates, but we did not accept some of the recommendations of former Governor Kaine, such as freezes to the home and community-based waivers. For those of you that don't know, those are the things that keep folks in their own home and away from institutions. We did not take recommendations to freeze the famous program. That's the program for the children of low-income families. We did listen to the advocates and chose to lower the eligibility criteria slightly for the famous program. But what we did will allow 3,360 elderly and disabled citizens to access that waiver program, and it will allow new enrollees into the famous program to get care. We did restore funding for inpatient, adolescent, and child psychiatric beds. We were forced to cut some funding to hospitals and providers, but we were careful to protect critical access hospitals in rural areas and teaching hospitals. We did equalize funding for worthy programs like CHIP of Virginia and Healthy Families from the private sector. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, we were able to add 178 new Medicaid waiver slots over the biennium for the disabled. That continues our House's strong commitment to provide support for the most vulnerable citizens among us. Mr. Speaker, we also have budget language that provides for restoration of cuts to the famous program should we realize additional FMAP funding. Now, I'm sure everybody in here knows what FMAP is. FMAP is the Federal Medical Assistance Percentage. That's the money that we get from Washington The federal government has enhanced that 60 cents for every 50 cents. But I do want to say a word about that money, Mr. Speaker. This is funding that the states funding to the states that recognizes the extraordinary growth of the Medicaid budgets from state to state. And it's provided to the states to help them deal with this growth. Although there are no statutory obligations to spend every dollar of that on health care, there are statutory obligations to not reduce eligibility requirements, and we'll certainly honor that. What you may not know is that 44 states have used that enhanced FMAP money to the bottom line to help them balance their budgets. And in that regard, let me just say one thing about the other body's budget. I believe that they have transferred most of the necessary cuts into the second year of the biennium, and then they've used that money to try to backfill that. That's not a responsible action to take if you place a high priority on developing a structurally balanced budget going forward. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, in this economy, that could be a recipe for disaster. It takes one-time funds, one-time monies, and uses it for operations and ongoing expenses rather than for non-recurring expenses. The House plan does not do that. You have all heard about the cliff. Well, the cliff in the other body's budget is higher and steeper because of the way they treated that money. You know, if there are any lessons from the era of money, the federal stimulus money that we've already gotten, it was that the localities who use that money for one-time, non-recurring expenses have fared a lot better. And the localities that didn't do that are the ones facing the big layoffs. That's why you see some of the FMAP money in our budget used for one-time expenses. In summary, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the House health budget. I don't like it, but I think we've done our job. I think the conferees will make it better, and I look forward to getting the conference report back and voting for it and getting out of here on time. Thank you.